Welcome back to the Brantley Method. We've got our More Than Just a Recruiter series. Excited to bring one of the best defensive minds in basketball, Coach TJ Cleveland, on. Far more than just a recruiter. Excited to talk about his journey from his starting point to where he's at today and beyond. So, Coach Cleveland, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to be on and, share some of my experiences.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I've had a couple conversations already today, and the gist of the conversation, one of the things that I wanted those guys to know is, for me, I want young coaches, whether they be kids coming out of high school that are saying at some point I want to get into the coaching industry, guys that maybe are coaching already in high school saying, hey, how do I make that transition to college? And then even young college guys that are maybe at a lower level. I want them to be able to learn from other people's paths and experiences, and understand that there's a lot of people out there that look like them and occupy the space that they're seeking to occupy, can help them along the way. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to be a beacon of light, hope, encouragement, inspiration, and education for those guys that are looking to continue this profession.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Looking forward to it.
So, for you, from your playing days, at what point did you know what, I can see myself doing that. I can see myself on the coaching side of things.
Well, it didn't happen, right off top. As long as I've been playing the game for a long time. I mean, I started when I was 5 years old, like most guys do, and I was always labeled a coach on the floor. Like every time I stepped out and played, even as a 7, 8-year-old kid, I was always giving direction, telling guys what to do, asking a lot of questions, very inquisitive as a kid. And, I just kind of grew that way as a player and as a person. And when my career was over with after playing at Arkansas, I had some choices to make. And I had an opportunity to go overseas and play. And at the same time, Coach Anderson got the job at UAB, which was my hometown. And, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get an early start on this. I really don't want to go over and try to figure out different languages, another way to eat. I didn't want to make those sacrifices at the time. And then I was thinking about getting engaged at the time also. So I was like, I'm just going to stay here in my comfort zone. And I know I'm going to have to rough it out financially a few years, but I was back in Birmingham where I had a lot of help, and it worked out for me. And I was fortunate to be around a fantastic staff, and we won. And that helped propel me, accelerate me a little quicker.
Awesome. And as you getting that start and the winning kind of culture was already built and was able to propel you along that journey. One of the things that stands out to me about the teams that you've been a part of is what they do defensively. Is that something that was a part of your mindset as a player as well, or at what point did you know defense was going to be kind of the place where you're going to plant your flag on, knowing that, hey, you know what? Every team that I'm a part of and the coach, we're going to be one of the top defensive teams in the country?
Well, it started as a player, and playing for Nolan Richardson. When I got there, we had a lot of guards, and they were good. They were very talented, and a senior guard on that team was Kareem Reed, who's from New York and who is really, really good. And we used to do one-on-one drills, and he would literally embarrass me. Like, he had all the and one tricks, and he was known in the Rucker. He had a nickname, Best Kept Secret. So I had a sense of pride. Like, either I was going to let him continue to embarrass me, or my pride was going to have to kick in. And my pride kicked in. And also on top of that, Coach Richardson said, I'll never forget it. He was like, all of you guys are talented, but if you want to find a way to get on the floor, play defense. Show me you could play defense. Show me you understand the game. He didn't even say anything about scoring. And there was other guys on my team, they could score a lot better than I could. But I knew if I wanted to have a chance to play, get any minutes at all, I would have to find my niche on the defensive end, and that's what I did, and I carried that with me to this day. I love teaching defense, talking about defense.
Awesome, and obviously you're pretty good at it because we've seen consistently your teams in the top 10, top 10, top 15 in the country defensively. As you start to teach that, do you feel like, because I know for me, I look and I see defense isn't something that a lot of these young guys are really passionate about. When you're teaching defense, does it start with recruiting a certain type of kid that is a willing defensive player, or are you guys transitioning and coaching a lot of kids into playing defense? Where does that fit in there within your team?
I think it's a little bit of both. Putting a team together is like putting a puzzle together. I mean, you're gonna have some guys that are really gifted offensively, and then you got some guys that are really gifted defensively, and they're lacking some things offensively. And so for us, we have to find the guy like right in the middle sometimes, and just kind of put all those pieces together and make them fit and make a good team and build good chemistry. But as far as recruiting, like I said, the word pride and toughness, it comes into play when I'm looking at a kid. He may be missing a few things on either end, but if he's tough and he's out there playing hard, we can work with that. We can develop. And that's a key, having a great staff that can develop and spend time with guys to develop that, not only that, offensively, but the mentality on defense. So we look for those things. They don't have to be great defensively, but if they're instinctive, have pride, a sense of pride, and a sense of toughness, you got yourself something you can work with. For
sure. And, one of the things that you've done exceptionally well, along with teaching defense and coaching those guys up defensively, is recruiting and getting some of the top players in the country. I mean, I think back to, Missouri, that team that you guys put together was insane. Being a young coach, being a young black coach, in an industry where typically views us as recruiters and guys that's our specialty, our niche. How have you been able to come above that, but then B, at the same token, still be that guy that can go out and get those type of guys?
I think it's all about the leadership that I come under. Coach Anderson, he's been great. And, as a young black coach, he always told me, you got to do things the right way and do it with integrity, because if you do things the wrong way and you compromise your integrity, that's it. Like, we don't, as a young black coach, I'm just calling it is what it is. You won't get a second chance. Yeah. And we've seen that recently with some of the guys and some things that happened to those assistant coaches, which I won't dive into. But, I just been under great leadership. I've been fortunate and blessed, and we've always tried to identify and recruit the right kids. And we had this myself and Coach Anderson had this conversation the other day. We just want to try to continue to recruit to our culture. And, a guy may not have 5 stars by his name, or he may not have 4 stars, but if he fits into our culture and wants to be coached and developed, we can give ourselves an opportunity to win basketball games and continue to build our culture like we always had. And, I always like to look for diamonds in the rough. I like to look for guys that have a chip on their shoulder and guys that fit. I don't necessarily care about how many stars you got by your name. I mean, you can look at the Final Four, not this year, but last year, and you could see how many 5 stars were actually in the Final Four, playing in the Final Four. If you do your research on that, you'll be surprised.
Absolutely. No, I mean, we know that the stars don't mean anything when it's time to put the shoes on and play the game, right? Like those stars, those rankings, they can't play for you. They can't do anything for you once that first whistle blows and the ball's tipped in the air. You said something that I think is key, and it's something that I've spoken about time and time again. I've spoken about it with my guys, when from the administrative and coaching standpoint, but I've spoken about it also in different coaching symposiums and things like that, and that's building a culture. They always say cultures are either built by design or by default. And the ones that are built by design, they're the ones that will win consistently. And it doesn't matter if you swap out one piece or two piece, or you have a new recruiting class coming in. If the culture is good, the rest of it will take care of itself. How important would you say it is for a young coach to understand how to build a culture and then stay true to the culture, regardless of there could be a kid that is the best player you've ever seen, but he doesn't fit the culture of what you're trying to do. Having the integrity to say, that's just not our kid. How important would you say that is for a coach, embarking into this path?
I think it's crucial because sometimes some of those things can be contagious, especially if it doesn't fit your culture. So if you bring something in that doesn't fit your culture and it affects it in a negative way, that contagious negativity can creep through your culture, and it could be a play, it could be a staff member, it could be anything. So I think all of that starts with the leadership, and then once you get your core values and you figure out what those are, and you live by them with conviction, you live by them. And you got to know that it's going to be some adverse situations that come up. But if everybody in the organization understands those core values and what their culture is all about, they won't sway from it. They'll hold each other, your staff, everybody start holding each other accountable to those core values. For
sure. And I think that those are the things that you lean on in tough times, is your culture, your core values. And I think that those are the things that, when you're recruiting young men, me as a father, I look for the culture and the core values within not only just the organization, but the men that I'm entrusting my son to. Or in the same way, when I've operated, whether it be my role on the AAU grassroots side or whether it be at the prep side, I'm evaluating that coach just as much as they're evaluating my young men from a standpoint of, I'm treating it as if I was putting my son with them, right? Like, what type of young man is he going to become underneath your leadership? So it's important to have that strong culture, and that's great to hear that that's something that's important to you. As you've navigated through, and I was actually in New York when the pandemic hit. I was at the Atlantic 10 tournament, and I came in town. I watched those early games. There was literally probably 20 people in the stands that first day. And, it was like it started flowing through our phones, right? They started talking about, is the Big East tournament going to play? Are they going to stop the A10 tournament? They had already played, those first couple games. But, dealing with something that from the middle of March to now, there really has been a lot of uncertainty and no real answers, or what does this look like a month from now, a week from now, 6 months from now? How have you been able to keep your guys engaged? How have you been able to, continue to do your job on a daily basis without knowing what's to come?
It's been difficult. First and foremost, it's been very difficult. But the most realistic thing that we can do right now is Zoom and constantly communicate with our guys, our players, our current players, just to make sure they're in a stable place mentally. Even just in our staff, we have daily communication. We talk like we're in the office every day, 2 or 3 times a day. So I think that constant communication with each other has helped us as a staff get through it, and in turn also helped us. I may reach out to 4 guys one day, the other assistant reaches out to 4 guys. So we spread it out, and we just continuously just reach out to guys and make sure they're fine, make sure their family's okay. And their safety is first and foremost. That's the most important thing right now. I know everybody wants to get back and get season started, but it's so much bigger than basketball. It's a lot going on. It's so much bigger than basketball. And right now I'm living by nothing surprises me. I plan, we don't over plan. Right. And we got to be willing to make adjustments. If this has taught us nothing else, it's taught us that. You got to be willing to adjust. It's taught you patience. All those things come into play, but nothing surprises me right now.
No doubt. I mean, I was looking and, they're saying, okay, second wave, and they're starting to shut, I'm in Michigan, and they're starting to close down restaurants and things again. So, you just really don't know. And on the heels of that, right, so going through, that pandemic, and then right on the heels of that, we have George Floyd. And, being from the South, right? I know that you have a different perspective, and there's been some different conversations as you were growing up that, whether it be with your grandfather or your father or uncles, there were some different conversations. What kind of conversations have you had with your current players, just on, number one, just the keeping the dialogue open and talking about being, a black man in America, and number two, just on them staying safe, but also understanding that, hey, they may need somebody to talk to, or some of these guys may be going out to some rallies or some protests. How has that communication been on that topic, and what type of advice have you given your guys as you navigate through that?
Well, it's been good, and that's part of the Zoom meetings that we've been having. Like, when this happened with George Floyd, it hit home, and from a lot of different aspects. And like you said, I'm from the South, so it's a different mindset down there. And, we've kind of lived that to a certain degree all our lives, and some forms of systemic, well, not some forms, but all forms of systemic racism and oppression is, a lot of that stuff is just passed down, and it was almost just like cliche, and you just kind of accepted it. But now it's a new generation. These, I guess they call them millennials. They're stepping out, speaking up, and it's not just the blacks, it's the white. They're all out marching, protesting, but coming back to our players and our conversation with them, we just wanted to be a listen. We want to be a sounding board to see how they were feeling, what were their thoughts, without casting any kind of judgment on them. And, our first meeting after that incident, one of our players who happens to be white, David Carrer, he was the first one to speak up, like, hey, I know a lot of this stuff is going on, but whatever I could do to support you guys, I want to support. I know, right is right and wrong is wrong. And when he spoke up and said that, our other guys started speaking up and just talking about what was going on and their views and what they thought. And it was so powerful because it wasn't about basketball. Now we're talking about life, and these guys getting to express themselves. And then I think in the form of expressing themselves, they are able to open up with each other. Now they're carrying on these conversations. They're like, Coach, what can we do as a team? How can we use our platform to help and bring some sort of change and understanding? And so I think that's what we're getting out of it, and we're helping and supporting our players. And we got some things that are in the works whenever we do return to campus, that they'll be involved in campus on, and as far as voting and registration, all these things. We got a lot of things in store for them. So it's a growth opportunity for our guys.
Yeah, you just said the key thing there, and I think that it's important to identify, right, and that's opportunity, right, and sometimes adversity and tough situations provide with the best opportunity for advancement, education, and development. So the fact that your guys are in a time where there's so many things that have the opportunity to create division, it's causing them to come closer, and it's giving them the opportunity. I know for a fact that maybe not within your program, but somebody's program around the country, there's kids that didn't even think about voting, right? They're like, I'm just here to hoop, right? Or they're not thinking about how they can utilize their platform to evoke change, because for so long we've been told, hey, you might not want to get too loud about that, right? You might not want to, so now it's becoming more acceptable and accepted for the platform to be utilized as an opportunity to spread news, an opportunity to share people's feelings, and not necessarily choosing a side, saying what's right and what's wrong, but allowing people to be able to express themselves and allowing people to be able to express their perspective and what they've experienced. And I think back, my grandfather comes from the South, and he was a Tuskegee Airman, and when he passed away, many years back, but growing up and listening to some of those stories, and listening to when people talk about, okay, well, hey, stay peaceful and bad things won't happen, and I'm like, well, I've heard some stories that don't necessarily mean that that's true. So from a perspective of a parent and of a coach that's charged with developing young men, we get that question of, what if I do everything right and I still end up in a bad situation? And how do we, as a young black man who, I know, and you and I haven't had this conversation, but I tell people, nobody in our generation has never experienced racism. On some level, it's happened. As somebody that's experienced that, how do you take your personal experiences out, but be able to, if a player comes to you, give them some sort of hope and some sort of, light at the end of the tunnel that what we're facing right now won't always be that way?
Like you said, we faced it, if you're black, directly or indirectly. So it's probably going to happen. But I think anytime you can stay positive with a guy, just pour positivity into him. Because right now, if you look at the news or you look at Twitter, it's a lot of negativity going on. So if you allow yourself to be trained and soaked into all the negativity, you won't see the light at the end of the tunnel. All you see is darkness. So that's my charge as a coach. Let's find a positive. It's going to be some adverse situations, but you got to figure it out. Let's figure, and we can figure it out together. That's what I'm here for. We talk about family. I'm part of your family, and we're going to help navigate through this thing. If I wish I did have all the answers. I don't. I don't think anybody does, because if they did, we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think when people pretend they have all the answers, that's worse than just saying, look, I just don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so you're in a role in your career as a young black man, associate head coach within the Big East. When you started your journey, is this where did you envision being where you're at right now as quick as it's been? Or, was it something that, you'd kind of, you knew that you had a passion for this, you knew you were with the right people to help you grow and mold, and weren't too much thinking about what that looked like down the line? Talk to me a little bit about the journey that you've been on and kind of how you envisioned it, and whether or not it's met or exceeded those expectations that you set for yourself.
Well, funny story is when I got into this, Coach Anderson told me, he called me when I was finishing up school at Arkansas, finishing up classes, and said, "Yeah, I have a spot for you if you're still interested in coaching." I said, "Sure." I was excited. In my mind, I was so ignorant to the fact that I had to start at the bottom. I'm thinking about, like, great, he got an assistant spot for him. I'm going to get on the road, start recruiting. And he told me, like, okay, you're going to have to do my video, and you'll be kind of a manager, head manager. That was my title, head manager. And he told me, I have a stipend for you that you can use to go to school, or you can put it in your pocket. And I chose the latter. And I'll be honest with you, I think it was $12,000 a year. And I had to make it off of that. Now, fortunately for me, I was in Birmingham. I was at home. I was able to live with my parents. I don't know if I would have made it living somewhere else, but we figured it out, man. And that piece right there was so humbling for me. He made me start at the bottom and stay hungry. And in the meantime, I still didn't know if I wanted to coach. I thought I did, but when he told me $12,000, I was like, you know what? I might have to look at something else. So I started doing door-to-door marketing. I worked at a barbecue restaurant. I had basketball lessons going on the side to make some additional money. And then, we had I don't know if you heard of Blockbuster. It was a video rental chain. So I worked at the Blockbuster headquarters also. So I had all these things going on. And in between time, I would come to the gym and do what I needed to do with him at UAB and the team. And then I would go do my basketball lessons in the evening or do them at the gym in the evening. So I had a lot of things going on. And he told me, he was like, you got a lot going on. Just figure out what you want to do. And he gave me time to figure it out. And so during that process, I was like, you know what? I'm not good at marketing. I don't want to work in a barbecue restaurant because I don't like how I smell every day I leave. I don't want to do Blockbuster. I have no interest in that. And so coaching was what I love to do, and being around the game was what I love to do. And we were able to win. I think more than anything, we were able to win. We did it the right way. We created excitement in Birmingham at the time, and guys in front of me were able to move on, and that allowed me to move up. And I just had a passion for it. I just started studying players that were coming out, just getting creative and different mail outs. And so I started just establishing a passion for that, just figuring that out, who the AAU coaches it locally and getting to know those guys and just building that network. And, one thing happened after another for me.
I can't get over the fact that you were at Blockbuster, because if I tell you how many late fees I had back in the day, that used to be, we would go, and a lot of these kids, man, they don't know what that life was about. A new game would come out, and you run straight to Blockbuster, you rent it, and everybody come over to the house and you play the game nonstop. But that's humbling, because to be able to experience that, right, and the experience, working at a barbecue restaurant, working at doing door-to-door marketing, working at Blockbuster, it gave you that diverse background to be able to, number one, appreciate where you're at now, and you know what I'm saying, think in your head like, man, this could be a whole lot worse, right?
Yes.
But also being able to relate to people from many different walks of life, and being able to have those conversations. I think about it. I think about what door-to-door marketing probably did for your recruiting, right? Because you're hearing no over and over and over again. You're not afraid. Okay, the worst thing that could happen is this person tell me no, and I experienced that probably 74 times a day when I was doing door-to-door marketing. So that
was the worst, because I was in Alabama heat with a cheap polyester suit on. It was bad. It was bad. I'll never forget that. But that's one of the things that motivates me, because I'm like, it could be worse, and I never want to go back to that point. I never want to go back. So I'm gonna keep working extremely hard, so I never ever have to feel that like that again.
Man, that's hilarious. So you came in and you weren't really certain, what this thing was going to look like when you first got started, and now you've made it to associate head coach in the Big East. As you interact with your guys as they're playing, and they're when guys are talking to you about potentially what it looks like for them when they're done playing, what kind of advice are you giving them as far as if they're interested in making that transition to the coaching side?
I think just being able to network is huge, and being a loyal person, being someone that's accountable. Like, if a kid tells me that he wants to be a coach, but he's always late for something, or he has a tendency to be late, or doesn't follow up to what he's supposed to do, those aren't characteristics of a coach, of a guy that's going to be a coach. So it's a lot of little details that I share with guys, and even if it's not coaching, even if it's just a corporate world, because it's only so many guys are going to go to the NBA. It's only so many guys get a chance to play overseas, and even if you play overseas, like, what's next after that? Like, you have to come back, and now you have to enter the real world, get a good job, or be an entrepreneur, whatever the case may be. It's some kind of accountability, in a certain way you have to carry yourself. So those character development pieces are huge within our program. Basketball is just one thing. Player development is one thing, but character development is one of the key pieces that we truly try to emphasize.
Last question I have for you. When it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want when people talk about TJ Cleveland, the man, the husband, the coach? What do you want that legacy to look like? Or when people think about the impact that you've made on this world in basketball, outside of basketball, what do you want that conversation to seem like?
I just take a lot from my dad. Like I was very fortunate to have a dad that imparted a lot of wisdom in me. And that's one thing. That was the one piece of advice he gave me. Like, pray for wisdom daily. Like, you're gonna need it. He told me that when I was 11 years old, and he was a person that always helped people. And so that's what I would want my legacy to be. If they talk about T.J. Cleveland after basketball, during basketball, whatever, I want them to say, like, he was a person that you could always count on. He was always willing to help you get better, whatever the case may be, whether it was basketball, whether it was things off the court, whether it was a conversation, anything with your family. He was always there to help you. That's what I would want my legacy to be.
That's awesome. Well, keep up the hard work, keep doing what you're doing, and I'm sure that's the legacy that everybody will see, the way that they'll remember you. I'll try to forget that you were at Blockbuster and working at the barbecue joint. I'm not going to tease you about that moving forward, but the next time I drive by a Blockbuster, I'm going to text you.
You drive by a Blockbuster, take a picture, because I don't know. Netflix is killed. I don't even know if it's a Blockbuster anywhere.
Actually, I saw one not too long ago in Michigan. Yeah. Like, I think that they're almost all the way out of business, but I think the video games were keeping them alive, and then Redbox and Netflix started doing video games too.
Yep. Wow. That's amazing, man. Hey, I just want to thank you for all that you're doing. Just bringing attention to a lot of different areas, people. Is huge, man, and I think you're on a trajectory, man. It's gonna really blow up here soon, man. And just keep doing what you're doing. And anything I can do to support you and help you, just let me know.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, for me, I've thought about that, right? And somebody asked me that question not too long ago. Said, Justin, what do you want from this? What do you want this to be when it's all said and done? And for me, my legacy, I want it to be a lot like what you just said. I want to help people. And I think that for us, for young black men in the sports industry, it's hard for us to self-promote and advocate for ourselves. And it's something that we talked about it earlier on one of the previous calls. It's viewed as self-promotion. It's viewed as, we're doing something negative, where, for some of our counterparts, it's viewed as professional development, right? And for me, I've been blessed to be around some great people. I've been blessed to meet some great people. And, when that happens and when that occurs, I'm trying to, the old saying says, and I'm sure you heard this when you started on the corporate side and, away from basketball, if you do something good for somebody, they'll tell 1 or 2 people. If you do something bad, they're going to tell 10 to 15, if not more. And I want to flip that, right? Like, I want to be that guy that if somebody does something good for me or has helped me in any way, I want the world to know. I'm not holding that to myself. And I've been blessed to be around some great guys. I've been blessed to, anytime I call you and ask you, hey, coach, how about this? Or ask you for advice on something, you've always been somebody that, answers texts, answers phone calls, whether I have a kid for you or not. And I think that that's something that, for me, I value. And I value, what you bring to the table, not just as a coach, but as an inspiration to those young black men that are growing up and say, hey, you know what? I want to do this, but I'm not seeing a lot of people that look like me get those high jobs. And a lot of those guys, they're getting frustrated, or they're getting, they see, I just talked about it. We did a shot of video last week talking about in baseball, right? Like, you look at college baseball in the Power 5, there's literally 1 black head coach and 3 assistants. So for a kid that's, thinking about being a coach, that can be right there, something that tells you, what, it can't be done. And for some guys, they don't have that mental strength to say, I'm going to be the one. They see that it isn't being done and they shut down. So my goal is to be able to amplify and tell your stories. I talk about it. I love balloons. It's a long story. One day I'll tell you about it. But the one thing that I say about balloons is, a long time ago when I was a kid, I got a balloon and I held on to it and I didn't want to let it blow away. And my brother and my friends were like, let it go, let it fly. Let's see how high it can get. And selfishly, I held on too long because I loved that balloon, and eventually it died. You know, in my bedroom, the air came out of it, it's laying on the floor, right? And I never got an opportunity to see what it could reach. So, you know, at this point in my career, I see everybody I encounter as balloons, and I want to be able to, you know, look up and see how far they fly and remember that at some point I encountered them and we had some sort of relationship, and I was able to be a part of that and see their growth and see their development. So that's why I do what I do, man, because of people like you. They give me hope. You know, they give me a conversation piece when I'm talking to my sons to say, look, guys, it's bigger than just what you're doing with the ball in your hands. It's bigger than, what society tells you you're capable of doing. And why can I tell you that, son? Because you can look at this man here. You can look at that man there. You can look at, and you guys are those examples that I can point to when I have those conversations. So I appreciate you and all the work that you do, tenfold, because you give me that person to be able to clap for and say, hey, you know what? I know him and he's doing an amazing job. And, when I'm encountering young kids that I see, you can always tell the ones that may not be the best players, but they sit on the side, they call them plays, they point things out, to be able to say, hey, man, take a look at TJ Cleveland. Oh, you don't know about him? Go look him up. You know what I'm saying? Go do some research. And we need more of that. So I appreciate you. I appreciate all that you do. And for as long as I'm here, as long as I'm given a platform and a voice, I'm going to continue to scream your praises and the other brothers that look like you and represent the same thing. So thank you for taking time out of your day. I know that time's the most valuable asset any of us have. So the fact that you're willing to spend some with me means so much. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing the Red Storm hit the court here soon.
All right, sounds good, man. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your weekend.
You too. All right, bye.